Black man arrested for driving a luxury car, but he actually owned it. Welcome to my channel, No Justice Nation. Let's dive in. In the heart of Atlanta, Georgia, a place often described as a black mecca, where black excellence thrives and is celebrated in every sector from entertainment to business, an incident unfolded that shook the very foundation of trust and justice. A young, successful black man, Darius Monroe, was driving his sleek, custom-made 2023 Bentley Continental GT, cruising down Peachtree Street after attending a business brunch. Dressed in a crisp tailored navy blue suit, his Rolex subtly gleaming under the Georgia sun, Darius exuded the aura of success that he worked tirelessly to earn. But to two white police officers patrolling the area that afternoon, Darius wasn't a respected entrepreneur. He was a suspect, a threat, a black man in a luxury car. As he approached the stoplight, Darius noticed the flashing blue and red lights in his rear-view mirror. At first, he thought they were responding to another vehicle. There had been a minor accident a few blocks behind. But as the sirens grew louder and the lights closer, he realized this was for him. The moment he pulled over, the energy shifted. The officers didn't approach with the courtesy one might expect for a routine stop. Guns drawn, hands tense, voices raised. They screamed at Darius to get out of the car. Confused, alarmed, and scared for his life, Darius complied slowly, hands raised high. Pedestrians watched, some filming, others frozen in shock. They ordered him to kneel, right there, on the asphalt, in his custom-tailored suit. And when Darius asked calmly, "What's going on, officers?" he was met with a knee to his back and handcuffs locking around his wrists. According to the officers, the Bentley matched the description of a stolen vehicle reported earlier that week. They didn't run the plates. They didn't ask for ID. They didn't consider the possibility that the man they were humiliating in front of an entire street owned the car. They simply acted. Once detained, Darius tried to explain. "I can show you the papers. I can pull up the registration. It's under my name. Check the VIN, check the app." But his words fell on deaf ears. The officers told him to shut up and push him into the back of the squad car. Meanwhile, his $300,000 vehicle sat idling on the street, drawing more attention by the minute. What followed was hours of humiliation. At the precinct, Darius was booked and held, fingerprints taken, mugshots snapped, all before a single background check was performed. It wasn't until a black female sergeant came on shift and reviewed the arrest details that the mistake began to unravel. She ran the plates. The car was indeed registered to Darius Monroe. Not only that, but quick Google search revealed Darius was a public figure, CEO of a growing tech startup that had just been featured in Forbes 30 Under 30. The car wasn't stolen. It was paid in full. And Darius? He was a well-respected figure in the Atlanta business community. The sergeant orders release immediately, but the damage was done. The arrest record, the mugshot, the trauma, those didn't disappear as easily as the cuffs were removed. And neither did the question that haunted Darius from that moment on. What if I wasn't who I am? What if I wasn't known? What if that sergeant hadn't stepped in? Darius' story is not just a personal tragedy. It's a chilling reminder of systemic pattern, because he's not the only one. This happens far too often. Black men are routinely profiled, harassed, and even criminalized for simply existing in spaces that society still doesn't believe they belong in. Whether at a college campus, a luxury store, or behind the wheel of a luxury car, the message remained consistent. You're not supposed to be here. In interviews following his release, Darius spoke candidly about the fear and frustration he felt. They didn't see me as a man. They saw me as a threat. A black man in a Bentley? I must have stolen it, right? His voice trembled not just from anger, but from exhaustion. Exhaustion from being successful and still being treated like a criminal. Exhaustion from having to prove his worth, his innocence, his humanity. The fallout was swift. Social media exploded. Hashtags like #DrivingWhileBlack and #JusticeForDarius began trending within hours. Celebrities spoke out. Journalists dug deeper. And what they found wasn't just a singular incident, but a pattern. Dozens of cases across the country where black drivers in expensive cars were pulled over, questioned, or worse, simply because of the color of their skin and the cost of their car. One case involved a Grammy-winning musician in Los Angeles who was detained in front of his daughter after picking her up from school in his Rolls-Royce. Another, a black lawyer in Chicago, was pulled over 3 times in 1 week in his Tesla Model S. And yet another, an NFL player tackled by police in Miami while trying to get into his own Lamborghini. Each time, the story was the same. The police didn't believe the car belonged to them. No stolen vehicle report. No probable cause. Just bias. Back in Atlanta, Darius decided to take legal action. He filed a civil rights lawsuit against the Atlanta Police Department citing racial profiling, false arrest, and emotional distress. The city scrambled. Public statements were issued. The officers were placed on administrative leave pending investigation. But for Darius, it wasn't about revenge. It was about accountability. "This isn't just about me," he said. "It's about the next young black man who gets stopped for looking suspicious. It's about breaking the cycle." His lawsuit sparked a citywide conversation. Community forums were held. Local leaders began pushing for mandatory racial bias training. Some demanded body cam footage be reviewed publicly. Others called for the firing of the officers involved. But most of all, there was a call for change. Real change. Despite the pain, Darius refused to stay silent. He spoke at rallies, appeared on news programs, and continued to share his story. Because, as he put it, silence protects the system. My voice can help dismantle it. And yet, even as the city took steps toward reform, Darius knew that real justice would take more than statements and training sessions. It would take a shift in mindset, a recognition that black wealth, black success, and black freedom are not anomalies. They're realities, and they must be respected as such. What happened to Darius Monroe is not just a story of mistaken identity. It's a story of racial injustice, of assumptions turned into action, of power used not to protect, but to control. It's a story that forces us to ask, how many more Darius Monroes must there be before we change the way we police? Because the truth is, driving while black should never be a crime. But in America, it too often is. After the incident went viral, the court of public opinion reacted faster than any police internal affairs unit ever could. Darius Monroe had become a national symbol, not for wealth, not for success, but for the bitter truth that blackness in America is still seen as a threat, even when it rides in luxury. As Darius stood before a room full of reporters during his first public statement after the arrest, he did not stand as a man defeated. He stood as a man who had been humiliated, yes, but not broken. The lights flashed. The microphones buzzed. His face was stern, but his voice steady. "They didn't arrest me because I stole anything. They arrested me because they couldn't believe I owned what I worked for." The room was silent as he continued. "This car? I worked 10 years for it. Late nights, skipped holidays, missed birthdays. This car is mine. My name is on the title. My sweat is in the engine. My ambition paid for every inch of that leather. And yet, none of that mattered." He paused. All they saw was a black man behind the wheel. It hit differently because it wasn't a new story. It was a recycled one echoed in hushed conversations at barbershops and black family gatherings. Every black man with money has that story. The one where they were mistaken for the valet, or the one where they were asked what gang they were in because they had a gold chain, or the one where a police officer pulled them over, looked around the luxury vehicle, and asked, "Is this your car?" Darius's case ignited not just anger, but clarity, a truth that many were too uncomfortable to say out loud. Success doesn't shield you from racism. It just makes it more confusing to those who can't accept your presence. And as the lawsuit made its way through the courts, Darius continued to push forward, not just with legal action, but with advocacy. He established a nonprofit called Drive Justice, aimed at fighting racial profiling in traffic stops and educating black youth on how to protect themselves during police encounters. Donations poured in. Celebrities like Ava DuVernay, LeBron James, and Killer Mike pledged support. Even prominent law firms offered to back the organization pro bono. But backlash was inevitable. Comment sections flooded with defenders of the arrest, claiming police were just doing their job, or that he should be grateful he wasn't shot. Those voices, loud in digital spaces, clung to the same tired narrative. that black people should be grateful for survival, not demanding dignity. A deeper look into the arresting officers' records revealed a pattern. Both had previous complaints filed against them, alleging excessive force, racial bias, and unlawful searches. But none had stuck. Internal investigations were quietly closed. Complainants were intimidated or ignored. The system had protected them, as it often does. This time, however, the spotlight made it harder to hide. As pressure mounted, the Atlanta Police Department was forced to issue a statement acknowledging procedural failures in the arrest of Darius Monroe. Still, no apology was issued directly to Darius. No public admission of racial profiling. No indication of change. Only silence. But Darius didn't wait for an apology. He built power in the gap where justice should have been. Meanwhile, media coverage intensified. National outlets ran segments titled, "Wealth Doesn't Protect Blackness," and "Racial Profiling in the Age of Black Excellence." Talk shows invited Darius to speak. Civil rights leaders rallied behind him. Yet Darius never lost focus. He reminded the world that this wasn't just about a Bentley. This was about every time a black man is told, with words or weapons, "You don't belong here." Young black professionals across the country began sharing their own stories. Stories of being followed in stores, denied entry into their own luxury apartments, called suspicious by white neighbors. One man, a Harvard graduate and investment banker, revealed how he was once stopped by police while walking his poodle in Beverly Hills, because that's not a dog you usually see in this neighborhood. It was a collective wound that Darius had opened, but it needed the light. And while his lawsuit worked its way through the civil court system, the cultural court had already rendered its verdict. This wasn't an isolated incident. It was part of a larger, more dangerous truth, that black people in America are constantly asked to justify their existence, their success, their joy. Despite everything, Darius remained committed to living boldly. He didn't sell the car. He didn't retreat from the public eye. In fact, he expanded his tech company, opening internships for black youth interested in software development. He launched a mentorship program for returning citizens, formerly incarcerated black men who were locked out of jobs, housing, and opportunity. Because Darius understood that the most powerful response to being told you don't belong is to stay anyway. By the time the court proceedings began, public sentiment had already shifted in Darius's favor. Civil rights attorneys presented damning evidence. Body cam footage of the arrest that showed the officers escalating the stop unnecessarily, failing to follow protocol, and ignoring Darius's legal explanations. Legal experts called it a textbook case of racial bias. But to Darius, it was more than legal. It was personal. As he took the stand, his testimony was clear. "I want accountability. I want those officers to understand the trauma they inflicted. Not just on me, but on every black boy who sees that video and learns that no matter how hard he works, he might still be treated like a criminal." The verdict, when it came, was significant. The jury awarded Darius Monroe $4.2 million in damages, citing emotional distress, loss of reputation, and unlawful detainment. But even more importantly, the judge ordered the police department to adopt a series of reforms: mandatory racial bias training, a new civilian oversight board, and a transparency portal for complaints against officers. For once, justice seemed real. Darius used part of his settlement to expand Drive Justice nationwide. He opened regional chapters in Chicago, Los Angeles, New York, and Houston. He pushed for legislative changes in state capitals. He lobbied Congress for federal reforms to end qualified immunity and require national police misconduct databases. He became more than a victim. He became a movement. And yet, through all the spotlight and progress, Darius remained grounded. In interviews, he spoke often about his grandmother, the woman who raised him, who taught him to pray before each job interview, who told him never to lower his head in front of men who wanted him to feel small. She had passed away just months before the incident, but he said he heard her voice every time he was tempted to give up. She used to say, "Baby, they can take your time, but they can't take your soul unless you hand it to them." I didn't hand mine over. I won't ever. In the final months of the legal battle, Darius hosted a town hall in Atlanta titled, "Who Gets to Drive Free?" It was attended by hundreds of young black men and women. On stage, alongside activists, lawyers, and lawmakers, he spoke powerfully. Let this be the last time a brother with ambition is put in chains for daring to drive his dream. Let it end with me. But he knew the work wasn't finished. The arrest may have lasted hours, but the consequences and the movement born from it would span a generation. Darius Monroe became a name that echoed not because of Carr, but because of what he did after being pulled from it in handcuffs. He didn't just fight for his rights. He fought for every single black person who's been asked to prove they belong. And even after the cameras stopped rolling, after the media buzz faded, the question remained for all of us, if not now, then when? If not Darius, then who? Because in America, a black man shouldn't have to be famous, rich, or connected to be treated with basic dignity. He should just be human. And until that truth is a norm, not the exception, we cannot rest. Like my video and subscribe my channel for more daily videos.